Hey guys, welcome back to PT Breakfast Club.
The AI videos, they get me every single time. I still think they're funny. I don't know.
But that's muted on my end when you play it.
Maybe
it's
really?
like auto muted. Yeah, maybe it's auto muted. I don't know.
I get the audio on my end. I don't know. Maybe someone will tell us. But yeah, there's audio to that. It says, "Hey everybody, welcome back to PT Breakfast Club." Like it even sounds like an intro.
It does.
It's a little disturbing on how good that was. And Tony was like, "Yeah, I created that in like 5 seconds." It's wild. Dave Kittle, Drew McKay, Tony Maritato, wheeling and dealing in the background. He might jump in.
Tony might be. I don't know if he'll say publicly what he's doing.
So here's the way to tease a segment. The $75,000 fine that started with a telephone pole, and in my opinion, totally worth it, right?
Yes.
Dave, that's the setup. Now
Yes.
You come in with the story.
All right, this past weekend, shout out to my buddy Ryan Johnson and his wife Blenda. They are expecting. We were at a co-ed baby shower. Sometimes, a lot of times baby showers are just the women only. This was co-ed. This was awesome. It was in Brooklyn. One of the folks who sat at our table, this guy named Sandler, he's a divorce attorney. And we were talking about a bunch of stuff. We were talking about life and business and all that. And of course, like if someone sits down, you know how I am, Jimmy. If someone sits down next to me and they're like a local service provider like I am, like, boom, perfect. We're gonna talk about anonymous challenging clients, like all that stuff, right? And however we came across it, like I think he mentioned something about Google ads, and I'm like, yeah, of course we use Google ads, whatever. We got into marketing because we're business nerds, and I think I had just straight out asked him like, well, before Google ads, like how did you like probably word of mouth, right? Like how did you build up your practice? And this divorce attorney said that he was putting the tear off, like the flyers with the little cut, like pre-cut tear offs at the bottom. Like most of the time it's like for music lessons, dance lessons, right? Dog walker or whatever, like
Right.
that type of stuff. And so this attorney, this was, I forget how many years ago, maybe close to 15 or so years ago. He was papering all the telephone poles in his whole area of Brooklyn. And he did it for 2 years. And what's bonkers is that it worked. He got people to call, and then some of them convert to paying clients who needed help with their divorce. Like, I mean, that, first of all, just that blew my mind. I was like, the fact that people, so then I'm thinking immediately he keeps talking, right? And I'm just like, let's see, should I start doing that? Should I do it myself? Should I pay some people? I know like on certain streets in Manhattan, like Park Ave and Fifth Ave, like I'm thinking like there's never any flyers up, right? Because I don't know if it's like too bougie or there's like some, Park Ave cleaning committee or, environmental, whatever. There's more to this story, but are you surprised in New York City or in Brooklyn, but New York City, that people actually tore off this guy's name and number and called him for a divorce attorney?
Not for that. Like, so first of all, I love talking about this, and I don't think I'm an expert at this. I love digging into it, right? So like when you bring this up, my whole thing is like, cool, why'd that work? Like almost like an engineer. I'm not saying I'm an engineer, but I do love like taking things apart that are not technical and trying to put them back together. So like people don't buy the best. And I actually have a LinkedIn post right now, which
I saw it. Yes.
Semi blowing up, and which came from someone else's idea. And I'll start with that, and it makes sense. Eric Mera taught me when I was a student. He's like, and I think I wanted to be like a professional sports team PT at that point. And I was like, how do I do that? And he's like, 3 A's.
I wanted that at some point too. Like,
and then I didn't want that. Right. Yeah. And I think I didn't want it because Eric explained how to unpack that. So anyway, we'll get to it. The 3 A's: available, affable, adequate. I think there's a lot of people that think you need to be the absolute best at everything or the thing that you're doing. And Eric, and I don't know if you agree or not, I think you need to be good. You need to be a B+, right? But the juice versus squeeze ratio of going from a B+ to an A+ is so huge that you don't have time to do the other things, which is available and affable. So now I'm going to make it, here comes the tangent to your divorce attorney. People buy what
not my divorce.
Not your divorce attorney. Sorry, yeah. But people buy who they know and what they know. Like, I'm sure if there's people who are doing the absolute craziest amount of research of which divorce attorney is going to be the best or whatever, the lawn guy, but we sort of buy who, on average, overall, we buy who we know. If we have that problem right now, I pull the trigger. Or if I mentally save it for later and then have the problem later, I then go back through my mind and go, wait a minute, who is it? It's Roto-Rooter. I've never actually had a toilet clog so bad that I needed to bring in a professional. But when I do, it's going to be likely Roto-Rooter, or I'm going to go and search those things, right? So I guess if you're the solution in someone's way while they're thinking about having to solve that problem, you win. And while you were just talking, I just asked ChatGPT to give me a timeline of how people got business through history. Number one was the town crier, the guy who stood in the middle of town and yelled. And you could pay the town crier, and then people heard about you. And then word of mouth. Word of mouth has always been there. But if you only rely on word of mouth, water sort of finds its level, right? If you were good, the town knew. And if you sucked, the town really knew. Like, word of mouth is the original Yelp.
Yep.
Next was the yellow pages and classifieds, which was how can we put all of these solutions together in a book and then just hand deliver them to people, right? After that, what would be the major milestone after that?
In terms of evolution of hearing about other businesses?
Yeah. So you've got town crier, and then you've got
newspaper ads or whatever.
Newspaper, right? Mass media, which is like billboards, signs, and newspapers. Yeah. Like let me put because now you have people going along a route for a billboard and newspaper. Then of course the ads and the way we find stuff start to parallel technology, newspaper, radio, television, the internet, which people I worked with in radio told me was a fad and wasn't going to do anything to disrupt newspaper, TV, or radio. A lot of those dudes don't have jobs right now, right? And then, of course, next thing was like SEO was king. Google was king. And now it's like social media, influencers. So the reason I'm highlighting this is this divorce attorney just went backwards because it wasn't crowded, because the telephone pole wasn't crowded.
Also, he said at the time, like, he had, student loan debt and didn't really have a lot of money, right? So he had more time than money in terms of paid marketing, in terms of, budget to allocate to marketing. So he didn't have the money to, this was, still 15 years ago, like Facebook ads were still around. Facebook ad you could have done. I think Yelp was still around then, or early days for both of those platforms. He could have done, I don't know where else, like paid. Could have been newspapers, right? Could have been, but he didn't. He did the guerrilla marketing, hustling.
That's the thing. He's not going to outspend Smith and Smith Law. You can't. Like, if you're that guy, you're not going to win there. So I have a steal this strategy segment. I'll bring it up, but it shows that, like, you're not going to out Amazon. You're not going to outspend Smith and Smith Law if they're the attorneys at law. So he didn't, and he went hyper local. He also, like, hey man, as a divorce attorney, where was he, in Brooklyn?
Brooklyn, yep.
He doesn't want clients from Jersey because either they're not going to come all the way in, or he doesn't want to go all the way out. Like, the juice isn't worth the squeeze unless it's $1 billion divorce case. So he's playing where his people live. So he started, I know Simon Sinek is big on start with why, but you and I we've had this discussion. Start with who. So he thought about who his audience was. Listen, hey, in this 30-block radius, statistically, people are getting divorced. And statistically in New York, people walk around. Like, the telephone pole model wouldn't work in my town because I live in a small town. People don't walk around.
No one walks around there.
No one walks around. But every 3 blocks, you're stopping for 3 minutes to stand on a street corner. And if you're not doing this with your phone, you're doing this. Now, this isn't an ad. Dave doesn't bring this up because he's like, everybody triple down on telephone pole ads, put it everywhere. That's not what we're saying. We're saying, like, actually walk in your audience's shoes, which for a PT is pretty good because we want to understand where they're moving and where they're not. That's why when I brought up, hey, what if you put ads in my local hockey rink when I play beer league hockey, like, every dude at some time or another when we're putting our
Banged
skates on,
up.
complaining about something, right? And listen, out of every dude in the league, there's 100 guys in the league. Not all 100 of them are going to go to PT, but that ad probably pays for itself after one or two clients actually follow that. And then hopefully they get back to the original town square, which is the locker room again. Yeah, I went and saw John. It was awesome. I'm actually feeling a lot better. And that is valuable. Dan chiming in too, and I think this is important. This is what I left out of the timeline. We're now also shifting to ChatGPT and other LLMs making recommendations. You talked about that, right?
Yeah. So Dan, I don't know if you heard, but like maybe in the past couple of weeks, I've had 2 different clients find us, my practice, our phone number, call in, all of that through ChatGPT, and they were searching very specifically. I would say a little more targeted than a normal Google search, but they were looking, like, one was looking for a physical therapist who treats nerve pain, complex regional pain syndrome, that does home visits in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. Like pretty targeted, like you're looking for, a laser specific
but that's what we
provider.
need. We need specific solutions, because if you gave me the best PT in New York and it was in Schenectady and I'm in Brooklyn, cool story, bro, doesn't help me. So I think that was the first thing. Somebody from a professional association a year and a half ago, when I started playing around with ChatGPT, and again, keep in mind, I'm still playing around. There's people who are way deeper than I am. But he asked me, he's like, how do we sort of hack it so PT's the solution to a question when someone asks about their body in ChatGPT? I was like, it needs to be the answer.
Yeah.
Like it physical therapy. Now, how do you as your business? I think we take well, first of all, take a look at LLMs. How are they getting their information? They're digesting the internet. So this goes back a few steps to, yes, having information and spreading information with your name on it and using keywords, right? And keywords aren't just like stuff the keyword in to get in there. It's the same as a dinner party, which is like if someone says back pain, your ears go up. So why aren't you saying back pain in places? You should be, not just because it's stuffing keywords, but because that's what you provide. So hold on a second. So this was a $75,000 fine from the environmental department or something.
I wanted to just circle back on that exactly. So so this attorney Sandler was doing this for 2 years, and he said like every Saturday, Sunday, whatever, like he was walking up and down, Nostrand and some of these other streets in Brooklyn, and just basically putting a flyer, taping it on the telephone pole or the street pole, like every block. Like probably both sides of the block, like he was just hustling, right? He did it for 2 years. He got clients. He built his base of his practice, of his business, which is amazing. He's an awesome guy. He speaks really well. None of it surprised me. It did surprise me that he actually got phone calls from it. But then once they speak to him, I'm like, it's a done deal, because this guy's like a great speaker, great professional. So he did it for 2 years. 2 years goes by. He gets a letter in the mail from a New York City environmental agency or whatever, with a $75,000 fine. And they had a ton of, he got like, he said, he got like a big envelope in the mail. And I think they had sent him like evidence. Yeah. Like this, like images of, and they were like cross streets, like this cross street, this cross street, this cross. And he was like, that was me. So they sent him all that, and so $75,000 fine. That for any solo professional, like that's pretty big. So what he did is he fought it like crazy, as I think most attorneys would do. I don't know how many physical therapists would fight the way that he would, or he did. So he said that he fought it really hard, and he pulled out, I'll have to speak with him again, some different articles on trying to, fight it, and like how this wouldn't apply or whatever. Long story short, he was able to,
he knocked it down.
He was able to fight it for so long that they were like, this guy is just like not giving up, right? So they eventually knocked it down to $15K, which is still a lot. And then he knocked it down in terms of like a payment plan. So then it was $500 a month and no interest on it. So it was kind of like, hey, let's just spread these payments out in the future. Like, who cares if there's no interest on it? It's not going to grow. And so he did it that way, and it just like, and I did ask him, I'm like, would you do that again? Like, would you go through that again? He's like, absolutely. It's like, it grew his basic clients from zero to a practice to a business, and he got through all of the fighting with the city on it, and now I'm thinking, how could don't get me in trouble, anyone, but if you're listening to this, how could, and maybe it's not a good question, because I'm thinking, how could I do this with like a different phone number and not put my brand on it or whatever? Because I'm thinking like that actually worked. So should I'll put this out? Should other physical therapists do this in New York or some other city? Maybe not, because he got in trouble, and you'll probably get in trouble if you do this. But I don't know if there's a way to do it that's that doesn't affect the environment. Probably not, right? I don't know.
Well, I mean, first of all, my question to your friend, which I'm already going to answer for him, was the $15,000 fine worth it? And the answer has to be yes, because he wouldn't have done it for 2 years. So I don't know how much money he made in 2 years directly from those tear-offs, but it was more than $15,000. And now he has those happy customers. They're going to bring him more business. So it's the snowball effect. So that's very interesting. How could you do it? It brings up my buddy Danny. My buddy Danny was a hustler, and this is back in the day before corporations were doing this. Danny went around Northeast Pennsylvania to bars because he worked at the radio station with me, so he had some cred. Some of the bar owners knew him, and he was paying them for advertising space above urinals and the back of the door of stalls and bathrooms. Like that's literally was a small business model, and it worked well for like 2 or 3 years. But how great would like a urology practice be if you had the ad in your face or whatever, like right there? Now, Danny ran into problems because people were vandalizing the frames, and he had to pay somebody to rotate the ads. Right now, you could be like, well, it'll be like a big iPad or something, but of course, someone's going to vandalize the frames, depending on what kind of audience you're putting it in. Right? He was putting it in a little bit of lower end bars, so. I don't know. Yeah. Dudes love to punch stuff for some reason. I'm not a puncher, but dudes love to punch this. This is why Dan says it's one of the reasons I publish and write so often, show up on podcasts and do more things that pop up online, so that you're priming the pump. You're loading, you understand what ChatGPT eats for breakfast and these LLMs eat for breakfast. So why wouldn't you sprinkle your own version of Lucky Charms in there? He says referrals are up 125% this year. I am not discounting that. I think I would love to unpack it and go, is it correlation or causation? And also you just said there's like 7 things there. I want to know which ones are positive ROI for Dan. And then I would ask Dan, what's moving the needle? I would go, Dan, what would it be worth monetarily? Because Dan's like a numbers guy. He's an owner. So if he showed up with Marcus Lemonis or John Taffer, my guess is, from what little I know about Dan, is he would know his numbers. I would say, at what point, at what size of a practice is the juice worth the squeeze on having someone who works for you full time, whose job is filling Dan's podcast calendar, creating the content? You remember who D-Rock is or was, right?
Yeah, of course. The Gary V's videographer. Editor.
10, 15 years ago, Gary Vee went on Craigslist and was like, I need someone to ascend. This is the creepiest ad ever placed, but it worked. It helped build an empire. Gary Vee went on Craigslist and was like, need a videographer to literally follow me around all day, every day, 8 hours a day. Your job is to walk around with a backpack filled with gear. And when I just go, hey, I got something. And that was the dumbest idea ever. Like, if you looked at that idea, it didn't make any sense. And yet it made complete sense. So my question is, like, are we already past that point where practices, I don't know what the size is though. Like, you're not going to hire someone full-time, but you might part-time someone. We already talked about that. Maybe you shoot and that person edits, and because there's a process, there's a lot of it. My question is, at what point, and I've asked this question before, the idea is media companies used to have IT departments, and now technology companies have media departments. People don't come to the radio station first to get their entertainment. I worked in radio for 15 years. I've got Apple Music. Like, I don't go to listen. That's not where I go to find things out for the first time. So my question is is anybody, I know Rehab to Perform does it. I don't know if it's one person's job, but they're big enough and it makes sense. I would love to track the numbers because that would be an interesting job. I would love to talk to someone who does that, specifically in rehab or medicine, media. And I did some of that, but I got to be honest, the organization that I did it for, we dipped our toe. They hired me and thought it was done. I was like, no, now you need to create so much stuff. You got to keep me busy. You got to make me tired. We didn't. It was cute, but it wasn't impactful. No matter how much I yelled, and maybe I didn't make the case for it enough, but I was supposed to be the D-Rock for a very large PT practice, and I flew around the country throwing parties. I was like, this isn't what I'll do that. While I'm there, though, why aren't I recording 6 videos? And I was like patted on the head and told that's not important. And I was like,
should have been, yeah.
I thought so. I mean, part of that makes me want to leave healthcare altogether. Like maybe I'm just not a good enough convincer. Why am I spending 10 years of my career convincing people they need to do this and then them not doing it? That's both me as a media healthcare guy and me as a PT. That's why I couldn't be in clinic anymore. Most of the people I worked with, I could put together a good enough plan. I thought I had a good enough rapport. They just wouldn't do it and they'd flake. And it bothered me so much that I didn't want to be in the clinic anymore. Personally, some people have the patience for it. And that's awesome. And we need those people. I couldn't do it. It really bothered me. Dan says it makes more sense the larger you are. I would love to know what the tipping point is. Because Dan's goal is to expand. Dan's out on Long Island. He's getting bigger.
The tipping point of having someone full-time do that? I mean, it depends on if you have the extra cash for that role as a full role.
My question is, does it make sense to do it before you can afford it? I did this. This is such a dick
Probably.
move.
I think so.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like if you get to the point where you don't need it, you're past the point where you need it. Here's the dick move that I did. I'm not going to say where I was working, but I was working for a healthcare organization and my job was creating media. And I had a process. The problem was everybody wanted the result. This was in research too. Everybody wanted the result, but not everybody wanted to do the work to get there. And I wasn't asking them to do all the work. I was like, hey, we're going to shoot some videos in the next week. Can I get on your calendar? And I kept getting absolutely in a week, I kept getting punted. They kept postponing it, right? So I, in a very high level email thread, hit reply all and said, CBS News wants to come tomorrow morning and do a story on this for us. Who can be on camera? Who can be available? And everybody said they'd show up. And then I said I lied. It wasn't. CBS isn't coming. But I have a camera, and I was going to put all my effort into creating a thing for you to send out into the world to communicate this thing that you just told me was important and that you wanted other people to know, that would bring us patients and help us do the thing that keeps the lights on and keeps us paid. And that was the moment I knew that I was in the wrong spot. Like they didn't care. They were, CBS. So I was like, you have 2 choices. You can wait around for CBS to show up. And I'm not saying that PR people pitching to CBS when you have a viable story is a good strategy. Yes. The other option is continue to create your own at scale. Build your own channel. If Tony sat around and waited for CBS to come do a story on how he's teaching people how to learn how to bill Medicare, Tony would be waiting for a long time. Tony built a YouTube channel that's got a bajillion followers. He built his own. We are in the build your own era of that timeline I just mentioned. And I think not enough people are doing it.
And speaking about building your own, so like, why don't we cover? So I mentioned, did I mention at the top of the show or in the pre-interview that tonight I have some physician dinner. So there's Manhattan Pain Medicine. They've invited a bunch of providers to dinner in the city, and I think a combination of how I was able to get that story out of Sandler, the attorney. I think that we could cover real quick on how other people watching or listening to this, how they can engage, how they can build rapport with potential referral sources, right? So tonight I'm going to be in a room of and I checked, there's like a Google Calendar, right? There's a Google Calendar invite. And I know 0 people, never met any of these people, other than a couple emails from the coordinator and the one physician from this practice, but never met anyone, right? So, and that's fine. That's how, that's what I'm signed up for as a business owner, and to build rapport and meet new people and all that. What is I know you're a little bit, you and I we're pretty extroverted. any thoughts on what your approach is for this? Like, icebreakers. For my approach personally is like, if I stay quiet, I tend to stay quiet like most of the night. So I like to just go up and like, I'm like, not in your face, but I'm just like, shaking hands, like meeting everyone. I just like to get that over with. I like to just get like, if I lock eyes with someone, like let's just get it over with, because there's this weird human thing that like, if you don't approach that, like different folks at an event in the beginning, I don't know if you ever seen this. It like there's like some like we can't break the ice later. There's like a time period in the beginning of some event or some interaction where if you don't get some commonality and just chat literally about anything, something stupid like the weather or sports or the food there or the seating and the table or whatever, then it becomes harder an hour or two into the event. So that's my approach. Do you have any approach, or you just like, you're just Jimmy, you just like do your thing, you don't even think about it?
I sort of don't think about it. My goal is like, so I think if you go into a dinner or a situation like that and your goal, because I know this is part of my job now at Athelis. So I have flown around the country to go to events like this. And when I actually try, it doesn't work as well. So like, hopefully my bosses aren't like watching where they're like, wait a minute, you're not trying? No. When I go into it with my goal is like interact with as many people as possible, I tend to meet more people. When my goal is like find referral sources, that's when it doesn't work. So it's almost like it's like Newton's laws. It's like the harder I push, the harder everybody pushes back. I go in with like, tell me about you. Like people people traditionally love talking about themselves, right? So like, hey, like tell me your story. Like where are you from is sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. I've been yelled at. That's not a good question to ask. I like to ask like excited stories. Like what are you working on? Like, what do you do, and what have you worked on in the last 6 months that super excited you? Because it gets their brain on the actual emotion of excitement, and then they're excited to tell. Oh, let me think about that excitement. Like, where are you from is a closed question. I am from Brooklyn. All right, great story. Like now, if you're like I'm from a part of Montana, but I don't have anything like I don't have any questions, but I'm like I've always wanted to see Montana. Oh, that's great. We're always open. Come on up. Like we're chasing the tail. So I learned this trick a long time ago. Like, are you working on anything exciting? I actually talked to my former morning guy yesterday. So this is the guy who was my morning broadcaster for close to 10 years. And he just had a knack too. He could be a killer salesman, but all the guy wanted to do was just be a radio morning guy. He was so good at it. But he would ask questions like that. He would ask questions to rock stars, to people who constantly get interviewed. And you would listen to these actors, celebrities, rock stars, because he researched them, but he also just asked good questions. Like, tell me how did you get the name Nickelback? Is a shitty question. Do not ask that to Nickelback. It's just a bad question. You could Google that.
Right. But I like what's exciting you right now. Where are you working on right now? Because, like, for example, at this dinner tonight, like, I don't know if there's maybe there's physicians like that might be doing research. I don't know. Probably not. Like I think they're all private practice. And the whole point of this dinner is to collaborate, which basically means like, hey, let's refer patients to each other. Let's be honest. Like that's what this is about. Come on. Like, right. And that's fine. Like, and they have like a sponsor and, right. Cool. Like awesome. So no different than things you're doing at Athelis.
Well, that's literally just going to ask, which is like, how would you like to be pitched a dinner like that? Because I could do that in my full-time role. We've talked about me maybe doing that with you. How would you frame it in a good way? My initial gut reaction is be as honest as possible, like professional networking event, or say it in a cool way. What was the thing you said? Synergy, professional synergy.
Let me pull it back up. Provider synergy dinner series launch. So this is maybe the first. A series means next time I can maybe invite Jimmy McKay. Maybe there's going to be more of these. So there's this event series, and I think I talked about this. It's called Health to Tech, and I interviewed Alex, who's like the guy who started it, and he came from Ukraine to America, and he's a tech entrepreneur, and his essentially, I'm paraphrasing his story, but was like, the people who succeed tend to be connected to a lot of people. I'm not from this country, so how do I meet people? So he threw like impromptu networking events.
health to tech. It tells you exactly the two circles that he wants to cross at the events. And he does. And again, that says series. This is the launch, which means this is number one. There will be others to follow. Alex's secret with health to tech is he goes Boston, New York, Philly, Chicago, DC, Boston, New York, Philly, Chicago, DC. He shows up once a month and does the rounds. That's his version of the telephone pole ad. I'm just going to throw the party and people are going to come to me and I am now associated with that party. People think of Alex. And then you can, what's one thing I might do is ask a question or like stoke the fire, kind of like speed dating. Like last night I was out with a bunch of my friends from elementary and middle school.
I thought you were about to say you were out speed dating last night.
I was not out speed dating last night. I was with my friends from elementary and middle school. I was out with these yahoos who all have jobs.
Oh, that's a nice pick.
That is a nice pick. We were out to dinner and I asked one question. I'm sitting around going, because when there's 8 dudes, there's like 2 dudes telling a story and 3 dudes, but I wanted to pose a question to the whole group to see what I wanted them to think, right? I wanted them to think about an emotion. And the question I asked was, what's one thing about your life right now that high school graduation, because it was also the week of high school graduation this week, right? So some of my friends' kids are graduating. So the question was, what's one thing about your life right now that high school you would have high-fived you for? And I love the fact that after I asked that question, it got real quiet for about 5 to 2 because they were like, "Huh."
That's something you got to think about for a second. Yeah,
like the dude in the middle, the bald dude in the middle. He's my town chief. He's the chief of police in my hometown, and he was not predicted to be an upstanding. He was a nut job. He would love me for saying that, but he was like, "I want to be a cop." And then he became a cop. He's a New York City cop, did that for a long time. Then he came back up here, was a town cop. Now he's the chief of police. Like, not voted most likely to be chief of police in high school. So, like, that was the thing. I looked at him and I was like, dude, that's what 17, 18-year-old version of you would high five you for. That's just an example of, like, how to ask that question to get people thinking. I think you can only win when you do these types of events. I'm trying to think how to harness it with a tech company, right? Dan's got some pro tips for dinner. Hang on. I'm going to read this live. I did not vet
Here we
them.
go.
Collaborate to research with these providers. Collaborate to research with these providers. Outcome. Oh, I see what he means. He's saying like connect later. Outcome tracking gone, patient out of network, typical type outpatient via typical outpatient. Lead one of those series and show how your practice differentiates and how it works. The patient journey and experience. Create an SEM fence of that area tonight for a 5-hour window. So any ad, oh, that's smart. So you can target it because you know the location and who's going to be looking.
Okay, interesting.
Not bad.
So let me ask you, with your friend's dinner last night, was it a long table? Circular table?
It was a circle. It was a circle.
Okay.
It's the best way to do it.
Yeah. The long tables, though, in my opinion, someone like you, and I think partially someone like me, needs to sit in the middle. If there's the 1 or 2 people that are kind of running the show and then like everyone else is quiet, the question, like you said, of like you pose the question to everyone, that type of person needs to be in the middle of the table. And actually, I think sometimes they even eat less, they consume less because they're hosting. Like we're co-hosting, and it doesn't always need to happen because of course, like if it's a big long table. Depends if it's some, private room in some restaurant in Manhattan where it's a rectangular room and there's always going to be like multiple conversations going on at once. If that happens, that is what it is. And like, you're going to like really build rapport with like 1 or 2 or 3 people, but not the whole table. So sometimes the table, the orientation of the table depends. It depends. Like, is there someone, I don't even know, like tonight, there's this lady, Nancy, who's like seems like the marketing liaison or what, I forget her title, and she was the one that invited me, but she's not a provider. So like, I don't know if someone like that's going to kind of have everyone go around and like introduce yourself. Yeah, like, it just depends on how direct or indirect it's going to be.
There's an element of you can screw this up. You can do that. You can do too much. Do you know what I mean? Like, you could have taken the telephone pole thing and you could have like created a strategy, and you could have like, you can do too much. You can screw this up.
If
like
you're the host or if you're an attendee?
If you're the host, you can put too much seasoning in this. You can try too hard.
Yeah, so
if you're like, I think you need to create the environment, a good environment, and maybe put something in front of people, like an idea starter or something. But when people start at conferences, like start doing scavenger hunts, I'm like, too much. I'm not doing a scavenger. I'm 45 years old. I'm not doing a scavenger hunt.
We don't need to do an Easter egg hunt. Yeah,
I don't need to do that. That tells me that you need to put lipstick on the pig.
It's lazy. It's lazy.
It's lazy. Yeah. It's more work. Ironically, it's lazy. It means you didn't do the right work. You didn't create the right environment for success. Like they'll do, like, because I've been to a million conferences, they're like, we need to get more traffic to the vendors, because the vendors, if they don't like it, they're not going to come back next year, and the vendors are what pay for everything. So let's do a scavenger hunt. Trust me, the vendors hate when you do that. It's dumb. It's lazy. I'm just here to get my stamp and move on. Maybe you should have structured your day. I went to a conference. I went to the HFMA, Healthcare Financial Management Association conference. I've been to AOTA. These conferences do a service to their vendors on the very first night. APTA has never done this, to my knowledge. Not that I've been there. Here's what they do. They kick off their conference. Like, let's say the conference really starts on Monday. They do a Sunday night thing where they bring in like a keynote, like a headliner. They hire like a motivational speaker or something from outside the profession, somebody who can really tell a story, right? They do their introductions, the president of the association talks, then the motivational speaker comes on and tells a story, emotionally brings the audience through the story, and leaves them either like Tony Robbins fired up or in tears, whatever. And then they go, thank you for coming. This is just the start of this next 3 days of whatever. By the way, the vendor hall is open and there's food, wine, cheese, beer. Go walk through, and they've spread the wine and cheese and the beer throughout.
Or in the back. Yeah.
It's the non-scavenger hunt scavenger hunt. Walk around. Oh, did you see they've got champagne in the back? Oh, champagne. Oh. Lead the mice through the maze. Mice don't do scavenger hunt. They don't do it. We're big, dumb animals. Treat us like that. Give us something I want, and I will give you that thing in return, which is my attention. But if you're making me do a scavenger hunt, I swear to, I don't like it. I don't like it.
What about so with this event tonight? I have this Google Calendar invite, and there's 26 names on it. It looks like 15 people have confirmed. So I don't know if it's going to be 15 or 20 or whatever. Would it be too aggressive? I've always considered this type of stuff. Is it too aggressive for me to email some of these providers and say, hey, I see you're on the calendar invite for this event. If you're still going, look forward to meeting. Never met you before. Is that too aggressive? Is that too forward?
How do you feel about doing that?
I think it's a little. I'm fine. I'm fine with it because I'm okay with.
How would you feel if you got that message? This is not a leading question. This is. I'm not trying to use your answer.
I'm fine if the email literally says, "Hey, I'm so and so. I got your email address from the calendar invite from this provider synergy dinner that's tonight. If you're still going, look forward to meeting because we've never met before."
Fine with it.
Right? That's it. That's it.
Where a marketing person would screw it up is they'd be like, super excited to meet. I'm Dave from Concierge Pain Relief. Here's a white paper on.
Here's what we do. Here's who we treat. No, it's all about them. It's not about me.
You can put too much seasoning and you can ruin the food. Yeah. So that's why the question is like, would you do that? Because the weird thing is, if you had sort of Tony's personality, or Tony has said before, he's introverted, right? He does. He
would not do that, and he would probably get pissed if he got that email.
Well, I think Tony would be like, okay with getting the email, like that's cool, okay, like
he might not respond, whatever.
He might not respond, that's okay, but he'd know who Dave was.
Yeah, that's it.
But I think you can overdo anything. So I think most people who are like, PT doesn't work, and PTs, of course, their ears go up and they go, well, what kind of PT and who was it and what'd they do and was it just a mill PT and da da da. The same is true for everything in marketing and communications that we're talking about. None of these strategies work unless they're done right at the right time for the right people. And it's locks and keys, man. The only way you know if it's a good idea is to do it.
All right, so let me mention something else. So yesterday, remember, about months ago, I mentioned you and Tony sent you guys a screenshot of the Studio 16 luxury personal training in Brooklyn. I finally met up with the owner, Nate Feliciano, yesterday. We were going back and forth for like a month with like our schedules. We were just never on, when I'm home with the baby and then Annie's out, and then when Annie's home with the baby, I'm busy or whatever, and my calendar and his calendar never align. So but the one patient that I'm treating, sometimes I drive by this location. Finally met up with him yesterday. And this is the only place I've ever seen in the country that markets on their signage, on their storefront sidewalk sign, on their windows, and it says, quote, luxury personal training. And I think that's awesome. I think, Nate and his whole team, but Nate caught my eye because 2 years ago, we were at my buddy Christian Marshall's Tribeca Physical Therapy had like their annual, their anniversary dinner. This was 2 years ago. It was like their 5th year anniversary. And I didn't even meet him, but I was looking through the pictures of like other people that were there because it was like a big event. It was like 100 people, so you can't meet everybody. And I remember seeing this guy, and it was like a full suit, fitted suit, all that. And I clicked on the Instagram handle, whatever. I was like, oh, it's like, oh, he's a personal trainer with a personal training studio. I'm like, huh. And I'm like, and he shows up to a physical therapy event in a full suit. Awesome. That's unique. That caught my attention. Then, you learn more. You look at his website, you look at his brand, luxury personal training. Huh. That's interesting. Who would pay for that? My ideal client, most likely. Someone that pays out of pocket, that's paying $250, $350, $550 on the weekends for physical therapy with us.
Wow.
That's the type of person. So I'm like, interesting, huh? So I've been reaching out to this guy. We finally made it happen. He was away, then he came back. So like we've been going back and forth for at least a month. Finally met yesterday, and not only does he have, so it's like one-on-one personal training. So there's like these little partitions, so you could train. It would be like a trainer in a not semi private group training, but it would be one-on-one. And there's like 3 or 4 little mini rooms with partitions. And he's also trying to do physical therapy. So he's going to have, an MSO, which is a kind of a long sidebar, like managed service organization. But basically, like, he'll help physical therapists treat there. They could be independent, but they have to pay him whatever the MSO fee is. And he can do marketing, funnels, paid ads, all that type of stuff. And it was awesome to tour the place. It was awesome to see inside of it, and it's a beautiful spot in South Slopes, Park Slope, Brooklyn. And it was awesome to see what he's got. All new equipment. The whole place is new. The landlord paid 50% of the build out, which is awesome, instead of the tenant having to pay for the entire build out. And you just like learn more about business from other people that are doing other things that are complementary to what you're doing. So
complimentary. That's it. Who is also here where you're, this is what I do in my job at Athelos, right? My job is to find people who we have the same audience, but we're not selling the same thing. We're not competing on service, but we're trying to connect with the same people. How does the rising tide lift all ships? Do you think in PT, I think it's changing, but do you think maybe like 5, 10, 15 years ago in PT, we were so medicalized that we're like, well, we just wait for the referral, and then because we're downstream, so we just wait and then just be nice and be a good soldier and don't do any of the things we just talked about. Just wait and be nice and hold your breath. I don't know. It felt like that to me, even over just the last 10 years since I showed up in this profession.
Say it again. It felt like what?
It felt like a medical process. It felt like PTs
I think
15 years ago were barely asking for referrals, and now like we're creating ad campaigns.
Yeah, there's always been practice owners even that have been in network for 20 years that they absolutely had to do the whole physician marketing thing at some point.
Which I'm okay
years ago.
Which I'm okay with if that's part of it. But if hoping someone sends you business is your entire strategy, I wouldn't be able to
Oh,
go to bed.
that's no, that's a failing strategy. And that's part of like doing what I'm doing, right? So I mentioned to you guys like I spent a ton of money on Google Ads in like February, March, and like it has not been performing as well as it used to.
Yeah,
And
Dan
a
even
combat
said
and
Google's been down a little bit. I mean, other people are saying
yeah,
this too. Yeah.
yeah. So okay, good. So it's not just me. Because I haven't changed anything much with my Google account. But the combination of that and getting some of these patients referred by some of these other concierge practices that when they're referred to us, that these patients like just don't blink an eye at our self-pay rates, right? So I'm like, I can't market the way that I either used to, or I can't market the way that the in-network practices run Google ads and Facebook ads or whatever, because my process is for a specific type of person. It takes a specific type of phone call. It's not just like, here's a link to book and like not really speak with them. So there is like a self-selection type of bias to this. And so that is why the past couple of months, like now I'm doing more like the combination of doing this like with Nate. So the past two posts or the three, four, whatever posts on my Instagram and concierge pain relief is getting more content out of patients being treated, and then also meeting other folks that potentially we can collaborate in the future. Not even, it's just like learning about them. Like yesterday meeting him, it was not like, hey, send us your personal training clients that like, don't get pain relief from your personal training and if they're banged up or whatever. Like, no, we need to like build a relationship, and like maybe he and I are going to work out together. He asked me if I play golf. I'm like, I don't. I play baseball. Like, I need golf lessons, but like maybe I'll start getting golf lessons, and then he and I can go golf or whatever, and break some bread, and that's what it's all about, is like the long term of building relationships, which I did the paid marketing for so long,
Yeah.
especially through COVID, where like, and then the baby, it's like I could be home and just pay for ads, and I had more time than money. But now it's like, well, the paid ads are not converting and working as well. So now it's like, okay, well, I need to invest the time, and that's why I'm doing this stuff. That's why I'm doing the provider dinner tonight in the city, and I live in Brooklyn, and that's why I'm doing all the relationship building, which like I've kind of always done, but now it's like video content, filming patients, the whole golden ticket thing, all that.
Dude, I'm half cocked to just start like to create one of these together. Do you know what I mean? Like you're not
Go on.
You're not an Athelos client because you're cash. And Athelos uses artificial intelligence to essentially amplify your billing process to get the most money the fastest from insurance. And yet you want to connect with people in the city for referrals, and just, I don't even say referrals. I'll say to build relationships to then hopefully get referrals, but really it's build relationships for the sake of building relationships. I need to do the same thing. My strategy has been fly around the country and go to conferences, which is not paid out for me. Not yet anyway. I met a bunch of people and I know relationships take time. But how do you scale that? Maybe the idea is smaller, not bigger. Maybe instead of flying around, I just start driving around and having dinners with people. I don't know. I don't know how to do my job. But sometimes
let me throw this by you. So Nancy, the senior director, strategic communications at Manhattan Pain Medicine. Maybe I'll have to connect you and you can just speak with her about what she does. But that sounds like
I want to interview her. Because
yeah.
I think what she's doing is stunningly, stupidly simple, which is why
it is
brilliant. Like I think it's a circle. Brilliant and stupid are a circle.
See if you can guess. I'm curious. They got a sponsor for this dinner, so I don't know if the sponsor is paying for everyone's plate or partially or whatever. Just like there's no right or wrong here, but like just it's kind of in healthcare ish. Who might sponsor this? Who do you think?
That's a great question. Who would sponsor? So a bunch of providers.
So there is a sponsor.
Me.
There is a sponsor.
Athelos would sponsor that. Who else would sponsor that?
Local within the healthcare world.
Healthcare lawyers, healthcare accountants.
Close enough. Try Farm Pharmacy has sponsored this.
Why? Because they want. Why? Oh, because they want people to know who they are.
Yeah. So I've never heard. I'm assuming it's a pharmacy that's somewhere in downtown Manhattan near this office, I guess. I don't know. Let me see. Staten Island.
Because the ROI, I guess, for someone knowing and using your pharmacy or suggesting your pharmacy is probably insanely high, right? Like if a provider starts suggesting yours versus another one, the ROI on that is worth 100 dinners, 1,000 dinners. I don't know.
All right, I just Googled it. Okay, the dinner and the practice Manhattan Pain Management is in Manhattan, like near Washington Square, right? So like downtown.
Downtown.
And this Tri-Pharm, Tripharm, Tri-Pharm Pharmacy is in Staten Island, which that doesn't make sense at all. Because like,
well, that might just be where their home office is. They might have satellite offices, right?
Well,
I don't know.
I guess I don't know. There's no locations other than the Staten Island address on their website. There's no other locations. That doesn't make any sense. But hey, I mean, if it's a sponsor.
Yeah, there's something we're not seeing, I think, or I'm going to assume. I still think it's
maybe Manhattan Pain Medicine. They probably maybe this is like a compounding pharmacy. Maybe they like send their scripts there and then they send them into the city, or I don't know.
But you're doing the right thing, which is like following the connection. Like, how's this make sense?
All right, so I'm curious now because you mentioned it. You're doing stuff like this.
I haven't done stuff. I've thought about it.
But you have some.
So let's say I have a budget.
You have some budget where we could potentially collaborate, where we maybe do this type of thing. Not even competitively, but like we could invite them.
Yes.
And I want to build relationships with other practice owners, either for referral and partnership, or some of these owners, if they're older and they're looking to sell or whatever. That's also, we're trying to do that as well.
Yeah.
Jimmy and Athelis, you guys are trying to get in front of more practice owners. Athelis is a artificial intelligence, EMR, revenue cycle management company. So you guys have cash and there's a budget, so you might be able to host this. So I'm interested.
So what I don't want to do, this is a good exercise, and we can talk about this because we got like 9 minutes left, or we do it like speed ideaing, which is what we used to do in radio. All the ideas happen in the hallway. The idea is I wouldn't want to just spend money for the sake of spending money. Like, I almost want to go full circle to your buddy who got the $75,000 fine for putting his ads on telephone poles, which is like, if you had $100, what would you do? Okay, I'd do this. If you had $300, what would you do? The lazy thing is, in radio, it was like, we need a new contest to get we need to increase our ratings. It's like, give away $1 million. It's like, that's lazy, dude. We're never going to get $1 million. We're a radio station in the middle of nowhere. Be creative. And that's where I like constraints. So let's say it was $1,000 or less. You could have one dinner. I mean, in New York City, you're not going to, I mean, how many people can you have to dinner? What, like one? It's
10?
10, maybe, with drinks.
Oh yeah, that depends. Yeah, it depends
right.
if we're going. You know, you do the little drink ticket. You get 1 or 2 drinks. You know, or not.
But then I go, who do you pair up with? If this pharmacy's doing this, and we go, hey, pharmacy, I don't compete with you. I'm pharmacy. This is what happened with remember Party with a Purpose?
No.
Party with a Purpose. I went to 1 million CSMs, and the thing that pissed me off about CSM was it was the combined sections meeting. Everybody would come together. And then at night, everybody would go off to their own parties. Ortho people would have over here, neuro, peds. And we like to say physical therapy wants to change the world. But like at the end of the conference, we just all went home and we didn't leave anything behind. We spent some money. We had hotel rooms and dinner and all that stuff. So I was like, yo, we want to change the world. And I know you're all spending 10, 15, 20, 30 grand on parties. I can spend your money better. So one year I said, you give me your money. You give me your money. I sold them a party. And I said, listen, I'm going to do all the work. I'm going to put all the right people in the room that you want to get in the right room at this party. It's going to be cooler. So I rented out the San Diego Children's Museum. We rented out the San Diego Children's Museum. I got an 80s band. I got a guy to bring in high-end liquor, food. I brought in a comedian. Like, we made it a cool event. And I made it sell out. Here's how I sold it out. If the Academy of whatever gave me 10 grand, I gave you a handful of tickets, or 50 to 100. I valued the ticket at $250. So as soon as I was done raising all my money, you couldn't buy your way in. You had to go to Vald and their booth to sign up to win your way in for tickets. And then I said, whatever money is left over from the event. So I think I raised $120,000, but only spent $90,000. I gave the difference to the 3 highest money givers and said, write a check to your favorite charity. So that was Party with a Purpose. So that's the thing. Like you can do more together. That's why Voltron is Voltron. There's an 80s, 90s reference. Like you're more than the sum of your parts. So find people to collaborate with. So now go back to this, which is like if Jimmy had $1,000 budget and was going to throw a party, who would we invite? But who could we invite and also add to it to make it dope so more people would want to come? That was the impetus of the party. I wanted to throw a party that I would say I'd pay $200 for this, for dinner and drinks and an 80s band all night and a cool vibe. Like throw a party you'd actually want to go to. So I don't know. Would it be a dinner or would it be an experience? Like something actually cool, not a freaking scavenger hunt. Scavenger hunts are out. That's the one rule I will give. Cannot be a scavenger hunt because we are adults here.
We've all learned today that you really dislike scavenger hunts.
I just think they're lazy. Like I would do.
I know, I agree.
Here is the funny part. My friend Sky Donovan does a fundraiser for her kid's school every year, or she's done it, where she essentially does a manual version of The Amazing Race. That's a cool scavenger hunt because it's time appropriate. What she does is she texts people clues and they've got to go answer the clue by standing in a place. And they take a picture, like, is the answer Benjamin Franklin? Because I'm at the Benjamin Franklin Bridge. And they take a picture and she's like, yes. Then she'll text you the next clue. That's a scavenger hunt to make this to have fun. The scavenger hunt at the conference is to maybe win an iPad. It's lazy. Like, so they fit when they fit. Don't force it. You can ruin it with too much salt. Yeah. So what do you want to do? But we have 3.5 minutes.
I want to do this. So we could certainly consider some other co-sponsor. What's the dollar amount? I don't know if you're publicly able to say it, but what's the dollar amount you got from Athelis? Like what?
Let me give constraints because if I just said
plus we could consider, because you're a video guy and Athelis, if you're creating video assets or whatever. Maybe it's a combination of a dinner or an experience and you record it and then you get to use that digital asset to put online to get people to have interest in the next event and have a digital asset for the video of like, here's a piece of content from Athelis that is not like, here's our EMR. It's like, here's this like life experience that we did, this dinner or whatever.
Even if Athelis never shared it, watch this. I've got someone who's now working with me at Athelis. This is a practice consultant who consults business owners. She throws her own conference every year. I'm interested. She gets 100 to 120,000 practice owners in one spot. Yeah, I'm coming for the weekend.
That's a huge conference.
It is. I yes-anded her. I said, and I won't say what this person's name is. I said, here's an idea. What if we upsold some of the people at your conference? You're going to take a cut of this. And she goes, what's the upsell? I said, well, what if I brought a videographer with me and we did a bunch of, I'll be off, Jimmy will be off camera. We'll set up the lights in the background. I'll pre-interview your person before they fly in, find out about them and their practice. And then a half-hour slot, all we'll do is I'll just pitch you questions to answer. And our videographer will record it, then they'll edit it, and then hand you 6 months worth of reels that is you talking about you. And then there you go. There's your Google Drive filled with whatever. So we'll upsell that for $1,200, but we'll only do it if we get 6 of them to book because we got to pay for the videographer. But we won't pay for the videographer until we know that 6 of them have signed up and paid. So the thing is, like, come to this dinner and we're going to give you, it's why there's a photo booth at a carnival. It's like, oh, that's cool. And this is cool. And that's cool. And this is cool. Create that carnival environment where each of those things on their own would be, that's pretty cool. It's like Jay Leno. That's all right. Combine them together, it is much greater than the sum of their parts. So sit there and ask yourself, what are the pain points of all the people who I might want to get together? And could I solve 2 or 3 of them? A dinner is not a problem. I could eat at home. I can buy a bottle of vodka and drink a vodka sodas on my back porch for a lot less than I could going out. I got to get off my couch and I got to go, especially in the city. I got to go somewhere. Gotta go somewhere.
Right.
So you have to overcome that social inertia. So I don't know. I think this is a cool exercise that I would like to do. Where in the city would we do it? Manhattan or Brooklyn?
Manhattan.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I know it's more expensive, but it's centralized.
There's a reason it's more expensive, right? There's a reason. So did you ever hear the paperclip experiment? This guy had a paperclip and he traded it for a stapler, and then he traded the stapler for something, and he got a house or something like that out of it. He just kept bartering, right? I would almost turn this into a paperclip thing. Is like, all right, I'm going to give you $1,000, Dave, and we're going to do a dinner together, and we're going to see what we get out of it. And let's say we make X number of dollars out of it. Let's reinvest. So now instead of $1,000, but the funnier part is our ideas get more creative and better when we have the constraints, not a blank check. The blank check would be like, here's a luxury box at Yankee Stadium, make it rain. And I'm like, you have to build up to that, because just spending that and hoping you get success does not equal success. So let's start with one dinner. How many's let's ask ChatGPT, how many's too many people for good conversation at a dinner table, right? There's probably a mathematical algorithm for that, right? We just talked about the long table versus the round table. So let's do this, and we'll have to execute it in the next 60 days or something. I don't know, 30 days, 45 days.
We'll have to have this as the to be continued with Tony next time.
I like
Thursday.
All right, what's your parting shot?
Parting shot is getting out there. So, I'm sure many have done it. And meeting other providers. How can you refer to them first? How can you be interested in what they're about, who they serve, their team, what they do? That's at least what I'm going to focus on today. So it's less about me today. It's more about them, learning about them. And oftentimes when you do this, then those people walk away and they're like, oh, wow, Dave or Jimmy was really like, they really understood me, or that, or they don't even say it. They might just think that they're like, oh, wow, they really are interesting or whatever. And all I did was ask them questions about them. It's crazy how it works.
If you want people, here's my parting shot. It'll yes and yours. If you want people to find you interesting, just be interested.
Yep.
Not everybody's going to find you interesting, and you can spend your time trying to make them interested. Freshman and sophomore year of college, I got a lot of first dates and not a lot of second dates. Here's what happened. I kept telling them all about me. Oh my gosh, I'm so smart. I'm with captain of this and president of that. And people were just like, this guy's a douchebag. What I was trying to do was be like, I'm actually kind of cool and I'm kind of interesting. I was doing too much, man. You can ruin it. Too much salt.
Yep.
Saw junior and senior year, like, hey, tell me about you. And then you wait. And if they don't ask about you, don't ask her out again. If you ask 3 questions to someone and they don't ask anything about you, move it on. But if you ask enough, most likely people will tell me about you. And then you're like, oh, if you want. And that's when they've opened the door.
Yes. When they've asked for it. And either they've realized that they've talked too much, or they're truly genuinely now interested in you because you were showing so much interest in them. It's amazing how it works.
The problem is with people is like it takes too long. And I'm like, that's a relationship build. There's a word for a quick relationship that I am guaranteed to get. It's called prostitution. I give you money, you tell me you like me, right? Like there's a reason it's the oldest profession, because people want it. But something that actually lasts, I'm sorry, fast tracking relationships sometimes happens, sometimes doesn't. Like there is no guarantee on that. All right. Tony will be back on Thursday, probably. And Dave and I will continue this conversation of if we had $1,000 to spend or $2,000, who would we invite? Listen, the cooler the idea, the more people are willing to spend on it. If they're like, okay, yeah, this is kind of cool. So it's your city, man. I'm just coming to visit. But we'll see on Thursday. Maybe we'll have a fully formed idea on Thursday.
Let's do it.
The PT Breakfast Club, iMode, where morning coffee meets movement science.